This is the Marabou Shiner from the Thunder Creek series by Kieth Fulsher. I'm using the recipe in The Founding Flies by Mike Valla. Tie this streamer on anything from a number 2 to a number 10. I'm using a number 6, 3x long. Just putting thread at the beginning of the hook behind the eye. I have a little clump of silver flash and just tie that in, and the flash is really just as long as the hook is, a little bit longer than the bend. The top of this fly is black marabou, and it's sparse, but it's tied in with the tips over the eye and then folded back, but I want to measure that. So again, the marabou body doesn't extend very much past the end of the hook, so I'm looking at where that point is, and then I'll flip that. And then tie that in right there at behind the eye of the hook. And then I'll wrap back. These streamers have long heads that are epoxied, so I'm going to wrap back to where that head would end, clip out the butt material from that marabou. And I'll just go ahead and start back here and flip my hook so that it's upside down, and tie in the bottom material, which is white marabou, and I want it to be the same length as the top of marabou. And then I'm going to try to keep that on top of the shank. Well, it's actually the bottom of the shank because it's upside down. And the idea really is to keep that black and white separate. I'll wrap back to my tie-in point and clip out all of the extra white material. Then I'm going to grab just the white, as much as that's possible. And a few more up in here. See if I can get them. If they mix a little bit, it's probably not real critical. I mean, the fish aren't going to care. But I want to keep the white on the bottom and the black on the top. And I need to get this really tight here for the head. I don't want any bulbing. Maybe if I wet it, that would help. Marabou always seems to behave better when it's wet. So I'm going to go ahead and wet that. That worked a lot better. couple of white strands yet, but I'm not going to worry about them too much. I just want to get that really flat. And then just tie up right around there. Everything on the eye side of that tie-in point will be head. So I'm going to get that tied in tight. Then I'll turn my hook back over. I've got it wrapped too much around the side, so I'm going to try to get that back down. Okay, that'll work. And then I'll grab the black, pull back on it nice and tight also, and then wrap and just create a band of thread. And I am using white GSP. Keep that black on top, keep that white on the bottom. And just create that band, and then I'll go ahead and whip finish that right there. And it doesn't have to be a lot of turns on the whip finisher because that is going to get coated in epoxy. So I need to take a pause at this point and mix up some epoxy. So I have some epoxy on a toothpick, and I'm just going to start at the eye and work back. Let's try to work that in. Try to get a nice smooth finish. And of course the kind of epoxy that I use will make a difference in drying time. This is a 5-minute epoxy, so hopefully 5 minutes is plenty of time to do the work that I need to do here. Coating the head of this streamer minnow. One of the speculations that this fly did not become real popular, particularly commercially, is because of the amount of time that it takes to do this process, because I'm not done yet. After the epoxy dries, then I will need to paint eyes and gills. I imagine, and I haven't tied one yet, but I imagine that the bucktail versions of this fly will be easier to epoxy the heads because I won't have these tiny little short barbules that want to stand up here in front. The eyes on this fly are enamel, so once the epoxy is dried, just take a toothpick and I just drop a white dot of enamel and a white dot of enamel, and I should have tried to get that a little more round. But that's the eye, and that'll need to dry. It needs to dry, and then I'll put a black dot in the middle of the eye. And then I'm going to turn it upside down to paint the gill on, and the gill is red It is also just a little bit of enamel, and that is painted just on the bottom side of that thread band. And I'm just using a toothpick just to get a little bit of red. And we'll come back in about an hour and put the black dots in the eyes. It's later in the day and I've let that enamel dry. So now all I want to do is put a single dot of black in the middle of that eye and in the middle of this eye. And we'll let that dry also. So there we have it. Kieth Fulsher's Marabou Shiner in the Thunder Creek series.